The ring with a black stone. It was a quiet night. Vasily was on his way to another call. He didn't know yet that this call would change his life. The ambulance was called by the relatives of yet another elderly woman. The symptoms suggested a possible pre-heart attack condition. The work of a doctor suited Vasya's personality very well. He was an empathetic person. He sincerely strived to help all his patients and maintain friendly relationships with his colleagues. He loved his work and saw a certain stability in it. Perhaps that's why he finally decided to take out a mortgage, which he could barely afford. He really wanted to finally get his own housing. Thanks to Vasya's sociability, all his colleagues were aware of this situation and even knew exactly that he only had 1,000,000 rubles left to pay off to this day. Having arrived at the address, Vasily, as always full of desire to help, and his colleague went up to the patient's apartment. The door was opened by a pleasant-looking old woman. Fluffy white hair, a kind smile, a warm gaze. She looked unwell, but still politely offered the doctors coffee or tea. Having refused, they proceeded with the examination. Based on the results of this procedure, Vasya and his colleague came to different conclusions. Vasya believed that the granny needed urgent medical assistance, otherwise she would die. His colleague, however, was sure that the old hag simply had a blood pressure spike while watching a silly TV series. This could be solved with one pill. While they were discussing the treatment tactics, the operator called and said that they were delaying the appointment. He relayed that the management was dissatisfied and the appointment needed to be finished. Vasily, however, defied the order and continued to provide assistance to the granny. He stabilized her blood pressure and, as it seemed to him, prevented a heart attack. On the way to the next call, the head of the department contacted him, reprimanded him for disobedience, and promised that this would affect his salary. Despite the fact that he tried to explain that the patient really needed help, he was told that the old woman was old, had lived long enough, and he wouldn't be able to help her anyway. Vasily tried to object, but the connection was lost. A few days later, as the head of the department promised, Vasya received a salary cut in half, which was a severe blow to him. Another mortgage payment date had arrived, but Vasya had nothing to pay with. He understood that the bank wouldn't be sympathetic, and for some time he had been trying to borrow money from his colleagues. They helped as much as they could, but it still wasn't enough for the monthly payment. Vasya had no parents and there was nowhere to expect help from. He constantly thought about where to get the money, as the banks kept calling about the debt. During another shift, while transporting a patient to the hospital, Vasily couldn't save him, despite all his efforts. The internal organ damage was so severe that it left no chance for a positive outcome. Apparently, this man led an excessively dissolute lifestyle, which left a vivid mark on his face. He was withered, wrinkled, and loathsome of visage. Tired and depressed, Vasya sat and stared ahead, breathing heavily. Before this, he had long tried to resuscitate this patient. His thoughts were already far away. He was roughly figuring out what he would write in the death report, what he would answer to the head of the department at the meeting. At this moment, he saw a beautiful gold ring with a black stone on the deceased's finger. He checked the database for the patient's relatives. He had no parents, no brothers, no sisters. Despite the fact that the deceased was a successful owner of an art gallery, he had no wife or children. Vasily looked at the ring. The black stone gleamed with an inner light. Why do some have everything and others have nothing? Why does a dead man need jewelry? Vasya looked at the stone and couldn't take his eyes off it. I save people every day. Why don't I have such a ring? A beautiful gold ring of rare handmade work with a unique gemstone. How much could it be worth? Will I ever be able to earn enough for it? Will I ever see anything like it? The pathologist will simply dissect this meat sack and it will simply disappear from my life in a series of thousands of strangers' hands. The ring doesn't belong to me. He has no relatives, no legal rightful owners. I fought for his life, even though it wasn't worth it, and I should take it. I don't wear rings. I don't need it. This ring will solve all my problems. I'll sell it. Nobody will know about it. I'll be able to pay off my debts. This won't make me a bad person. Moreover, I'll be able to continue helping people. I'll become even more useful to them. Nobody sees. I'll just take it, and that's it. With a feeling of dizziness, not fully realizing what he was doing, Vasya, with sweaty hands, removed the ring from the deceased's finger and put it in his pocket. At the moment he took the ring, the light in the car went out for a second. From that night on, he began to have nightmares. Vasya is sitting in a field of grey grass. He is surrounded by a dense green forest. Gradually, a noise appears. Thick grey smoke billows from the forest. The noise gradually intensifies and turns into thousands of screams. He begins to distinguish individual screams that do not stop for a second. Smoke surrounds him from all sides. Vasya tries to run away, but he can't, because he is running as if through jelly. The smoke envelops him more and more. The noise of the screams gets louder and louder. Surrounding Vasya from all sides, the smoke tightly squeezes him. The grey stream quickly crawls over his body, moving towards his head, towards his nostrils, towards his mouth. Afraid to breathe, Vasya holds his breath. He is unable to move. Opening his eyes, he realizes that he is in a grey, endless haze. Unable to bear it, he takes a breath. The smell of burning, rot and filth burns his nose and throat. He can't hear anything because of the screams. He feels like he's screaming himself. He throws his head back. His nose and throat burn unbearably. He can't hear his own scream. After which Vasya woke up covered in sweat and tears. Because of the constant nightmares, he couldn't get enough sleep. Every morning he could barely open his eyes and went to work, and every night he had the same nightmare. He tried to find the meaning of this dream on the internet, but it led to nothing. Vasya attributed everything to the fear that someone would miss the ring. He was afraid of being exposed, and every time someone approached him, Vasya expected to hear words of accusation. This was very exhausting for him. He started having frequent headaches and ringing in his ears. His skin began to pale. "I shouldn't have taken it," Vasya said in a tired voice. "I did the right thing. The ring will help me pay off my debts. I'll be able to help people. It was worth the risk, but I can't get caught. That can't be allowed. I'll lose my house, my job, my reputation." For a second, the surrounding light went out. "Did you even have a reputation? Your colleagues don't respect you. The management doesn't value you. You're not useful enough to your patients. Without me, you'll get caught, lose everything, and everyone will be better off. They'll just forget about you. You were never even here." Vasya stood dumbfounded. He felt the presence of someone in his head for the first time. "What the hell? Are you talking to me? I shouldn't have taken you, but I'll do as I planned. I'll pawn you. I'll solve my problems and continue helping people. And it doesn't matter who thinks what about me," he replied resolutely. Overcoming his fear, on his first day off, Vasya went to a pawn shop. He went to the one his patients had told him about, where the owner didn't ask too many questions and didn't cooperate with the police. Taking out a small handkerchief, Vasya unfolded it and pulled out the ring. Hesitating slightly, he gave it to the pawnbroker, a thin old man with trembling hands. He said that the ring belonged to his grandfather, that it was very dear to him, but circumstances forced him to sell it. The old man nodded understandingly and reached out to take it. Vasya slowly handed over the ring for appraisal. At that moment, he felt as if he had given away a part of himself. It took the pawnbroker some time to appraise the ring. The weight was unbearable. Vasily's hands were sweating, His breathing became deep and ragged. Vasya started looking around. There was no one else in the shop. After a few minutes, the owner appraised the ring at exactly 1 million rubles. A wave of joy washed over Vasya from head to toe. He thought he had won. This is what I need. I will get rid of you, and I will solve all my problems. Open your eyes, idiot. The pawn shop owner has already pressed the alarm button. He guessed where you got me. It's all over your face. Where did a nobody like you get such a ring? I'll say I found you, Vasya answered uncertainly. It doesn't matter. I'll come up with something. Your eyes are darting, your hands are sweating, you're breathing heavily, the ring replied rudely. You're caught. He's figured you out. Moron, if you don't want to end up behind bars, get rid of this meat sack immediately. What are you saying? I'm a doctor, I save people, I don't kill them. Who are you going to save from prison, idiot? You're caught, you'll rot in jail. Nobody respects you, they think you're pathetic. If you still want to be of any use to your patients, just get rid of this meat sack. There was a pause. Time slowed down. Vasya abruptly grabbed the elderly man by the neck with both hands. He pulled him over the counter. He dropped the shop owner to the floor and began to strangle him. Clenching his teeth, he screamed. His face turned red. Saliva dripped from his mouth. The light in the room went out for a second. Vasya grabbed the ring and ran home filled with emotions. He ran and felt a surge of strength. His legs moved faster, his body filled with energy. But fear exploded in his brain. He wanted to run further. He had the strength, but conflicting feelings overwhelmed him. He was scared but good. The power flowed from his head, through his spinal cord into the muscles of his legs. His body was overflowing with energy. He felt the world differently, more acutely. He heard more, saw brighter. He felt the wind on his skin. Work days had turned into a series of gray days. Helping people no longer inspired him. He longed for something more. Everything that was happening around him seemed insufficient. He hadn't paid off his debts. The debts were growing. And although it wasn't so important anymore, it still hung over him like a heavy burden. It was becoming harder and harder to focus on his patients. He was making more and more mistakes on calls. Relationships with colleagues began to deteriorate. Management was constantly dissatisfied. He couldn't go to pawn shops because the media was spreading information about the brutal murder of a pawn shop owner. The police were searching for the killer. He was afraid of getting caught and losing the remnants of his past life, losing those crumbs that he had managed to save. But the debts had to be paid, otherwise he wouldn't be able to restore his former life. His movements became slow. Each arm seemed to weigh 10 kilograms heavier. He felt like he was moving through jelly. He had difficulty breathing. His lungs constantly lacked air. His facial features became coarser. He was constantly stumbling. Drowsiness became an integral part of his life. Food didn't give him strength and he stopped feeling its taste. In moments of extreme weakness, Vasily remembered what could restore his vitality, but he was afraid to repeat it. I'm hungry. The ring growled demandingly. Vasya didn't react. I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. The ring continued to growl. Vasya continued to ignore it. Well, you meat sack, have you solved your debt problems yet? Of course not, you're worthless just like your job. It won't help you. Fine, I'll solve this problem for you. Get ready, you'll do what you're told. Vasya shook his head. But what about my patients? Don't you dare shake your stupid head. Even though you are a complete moron, you still help your pathetic patients. If you don't pay your debts, you'll be thrown out like a bag of shit. There's no way back for you. Vasya started to get dressed without saying a word. He walked in the darkness through a series of endless streets. The ring told him where to go. A constant noise sounded in his head. Vasya didn't know where he was being led or what he would have to do. After an hour of wandering through the city, the ring told him to follow a young couple. After some time, He turned after them into a dark alley. Then, following the ring's command, he grabbed the first thing that came to hand. It turned out to be a piece of brick. Closing his eyes, he struck several blows to the heads of his victims, trying to stun them. Then everything was like a dream. He never remembered exactly what happened, but he woke up covered in blood and a couple of corpses lay on the ground. In his right hand, he held a bloody piece of brick. Vasya was frightened and wanted to run away, but the ring made him take all their valuables. Suddenly his vision cleared. He saw what he had done. Horrified by his actions, Vasya ran home. Strength filled him again. His legs carried him forward. His hands cut through the night air. His lungs filled with oxygen and intoxicated his brain. Euphoria clouded his eyes. Unbridled fear caused severe dizziness, but he wasn't what he used to be. He saw small insects in the darkness. He heard the noise of rats scurrying in the dark alleys. He felt spiders crawling along the walls in unusually large swarms. The tiniest hairs on his skin stood on end. Like small antennas, they received the energy of the city. He felt he could run for years. He felt as if a huge sun had ignited in his chest and filled him from within. It seemed as if the moon shone only for him. Every day he was tormented by guilt. The weight of his actions pressed down on him, debts piled up, his electricity was cut off, his water was cut off. He went to work more out of habit. He had to constantly hide his face under a hood, but he felt that this wasn't enough, that the cameras could spot his face, and he would be caught. He began to stoop lower and lower, in an attempt to become less noticeable to the cameras. Vasya had severely neglected himself. He washed less and less frequently, stopped changing his clothes. He constantly thought about the surge of strength he experienced at the moment of the murder. He was constantly drawn to go hunting. He wanted to collect more and more jewels, as if collecting was the goal itself and not an attempt to get out of debt. Vasya began to notice that his vertebrae were protruding from his back. One day, Vasily was summoned by the head of the department. He scurried into the office with small, quick steps. As he walked down the corridor, colleagues he encountered turned away from him in an attempt to overcome their gag reflex and covered their noses. He entered the office. The head of the department coughed sharply, as if the air had been knocked out of his lungs. He rushed to the window, opened it to let in fresh air, and put on a medical mask. After an extremely short conversation, Vasily was dismissed without notice. The bank found out that Vasily had been fired. The calls became more frequent and insistent. They threatened him with eviction, a ruined credit history. They threatened that he wouldn't be able to return to a normal life. They even threatened him with physical violence. The feeling of fear and panic grew within Vasily. Weakness intensified, a feeling of shortness of breath. He was increasingly drawn to the ground. Vasily could barely resist the call of the ring. He lacked energy, strength. He wanted to experience the feeling of euphoria again. The number of jewels grew as he went hunting every night, but the periods of euphoria became shorter and shorter, and he needed them more and more. Vasily couldn't pawn the jewels as he thought they would be waiting for him there. He was still afraid of getting caught. Vasily raked all the treasures into a pile. He could no longer sleep on the bed. The thought that these treasures were far from him was unbearable, and he slept right on top of them. At night, while hunting, the former doctor noticed that he moved mostly on half-bent legs. This made it easier for him to chase prey and make long leaps in an attempt to knock it down. His teeth had sharpened and easily pierced human flesh. Sometimes blood got into his mouth, which gave him complete pleasure. His feet had lengthened, and he stopped wearing shoes. His skin became tougher, coarser, and acquired a grayish tint. He practically stopped tormenting himself with thoughts while hunting. "Rejoice, meat sack. Today I have prepared something special for you." Vasily became alert after these words. "Today you will solve all your problems and finally become truly free." Vasya's head was flooded with thoughts. He was afraid of what was about to happen. But at the same time he wanted to be free from the ring, and he wanted to get rid of his problems. His thoughts were confused. That same evening, after a long walk among the deserted streets, he came to a familiar house. In his pocket was a piece of brick. He was ready to free himself from the ring, gain freedom, and solve all his problems. He approached the familiar entrance. A lone figure sat on the bench. It was an old woman with fluffy white hair, a kind smile, and a warm gaze. He slowly walked towards the old woman. Tears streamed down his cheeks. When he reached her, she smiled and stood up slightly. The old woman greeted him, said she recognized him. She asked why he was crying, whether he needed help. Vasya was unable to answer anything. The old woman invited him in for tea. Vasya slowly nodded. The old woman turned towards the entrance and invited Vasya to follow her. "You know what to do, meat sack." Vasya struck the back of the old woman's head with a heavy blow from a piece of brick. She groaned loudly and fell. Contrary to expectations, this time he didn't lose consciousness. He was aware of everything. And he struck heavy blows again and again until the body stopped reacting. He collected the granny's jewelry from her body. This time, euphoria didn't give him strength. He felt nothing but emptiness. He was no longer afraid of getting caught, but rather even wanted it. Tears kept flowing down his cheeks. His hands were shaking. He slowly turned around and walked towards the house, periodically falling to all fours. He didn't try to run, but walked in small steps, hoping that someone would catch him. "Oh, don't worry, meat sack. No one will catch you. No one saw you. Only I determine when you get caught and when you don't. Only I decide what will happen to you, meat sack." Reaching the house, he began to slowly climb the steps, increasingly resorting to all fours. He didn't do it on purpose. Rather, it happened instinctively. The pain and grief, having reached their peak, simply evaporated. Only a ringing emptiness remained. He could no longer feel anything. Entering the apartment, he threw the old lady's jewelry onto the common pile. He paused for a second and examined it. The pile of jewelry was quite impressive. It attracted his gaze. He enjoyed looking at it. He remembered that it was needed for something important, for something that he really wanted, but he couldn't remember what exactly. He lay down on the pile and instantly fell asleep, and tears flowed down his cheeks one last time. Vasya woke up from a phone call. He had 13 missed calls. Picking up the phone, he tried to answer, but only an inarticulate hissing sound escaped his throat. A bank employee notified him that tomorrow was the final eviction date. Bailiffs with the police would arrive and clear the premises of him. This no longer bothered Vasya. The apartment was too big for him. There was simply no point in such spaces. He packed the most valuable thing he had, the treasures, into a backpack, and under the cover of night, moving on 3 limbs, descended into the sewer. It was warm in the sewer. It smelled very familiar, rather even pleasant. The pipes were comfortable enough, and he moved in them exclusively on all fours. Following the call of the ring, he found a branch where it was relatively dry. He raked the jewels into a common pile and lay down on it. A crazy story went viral on citywide online forums, another urban legend. Several plumbers discovered an abnormally large rat in the sewers while checking the tightness of the sewer pipes. Seeing them, the rat immediately rushed at them, biting one of the plumbers. The others attacked it and beat it with adjustable wrenches. The rat's body was carried away by the sewage, and no evidence of the rodent was provided. The photograph showed 5 plumbers. One of them was pointing at his friend, and a gold ring with a black stone adorned his finger.